What's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is $3 Theater, and opening up in a couple weeks here in the States, at least it's open in China and a couple other places, is Aquaman, right? And the critics over in I should say the viewers, the fans over in China ate the damn movie up, 94.2 million when it was all said and done during its opening weekend. And now the critics here in the United States who have seen it are able to talk about it. They're able to put out their reviews, and we're able to get a solid Rotten Tomatoes score off of the film's first 54 total reviews. And of course, this is a RT recap where I take a quick look at what's available on Rotten Tomatoes right now to give you, the viewer, my interpretation of what it could mean to go see this movie, not knowing anything about it, right? It's coming here, looking at reviews and wondering exactly what it all means. And that, of course, is why we're doing what we're doing here today. So let's take a quick look over at the Rotten Tomatoes page for Aquaman. I have to say, I do love that picture right there of the great white sharks getting ready to go into combat. I simply am excited to see whatever happens in regards to the underwater battle sequences here. But as we can see right off the bat, we're looking at a 72%. It's an average rating of 6.2 out of 10, but it's got 54 counted reviews, 39 being fresh, 15 being rotten. But the critical consensus here saying Aquaman swims with this entertainingly ludicrous tide, offering up CGI superhero spectacle that delivers energetic action with an emphasis on good old-fashioned fun. And let's be fair, we need more of that. We do. 97% of people who have voted on this want to see it, out of a user rating of roughly 12,000 people. So there's a lot of folks out there that want to check it out. Of course, if you don't know what the plot synopsis is for Aquaman, it says here, from Warner Brothers Picture and director James Wan comes an action-packed adventure that spans the vast, visually breathtaking underwater world of the Seven Seas. Aquaman, starring Jason Momoa in the title role, the film reveals the origin story of the half-human, half-Atlantean Arthur Curry and takes him on the journey of his lifetime, one that will not only force him to face who he really is, but to discover if he is worthy of who he was born to be, King. Sounds about right. And from my understanding of the film so far, it's definitely looking to be a big one. Now, one of the complaints I did hear just from a headline earlier was talking about the runtime, that it does overstay its welcome in a few areas. This is coming in at 143 minutes, so nearly 2.5 hours. And of course, that would be over 2.5 hours after you're done with preview. So take a leak first. Trust me on that one. Of course, the film stars Jason Momoa, Amber Heard, Nicole Kidman, Willem Dafoe, Patrick Wilson, and Dolph Lundgren. It's a pretty awesome, stellar cast, if you ask me. All right, let's take a look here at the top reviews. So what I like to do here is just go through them one by one, look at what they say, analyze what they say, give my interpretation of what they say, and give you probably a better understanding of what to expect in the film. So up here first is Joshua Rothkopf from Time Out, giving it a rotten review, saying Aquaman is more seawater than bong water. Unfortunately, when it gets trippy, it floats within hailing distance of Doctor Strange. Okay, so I guess we're referring to a bit of like the underwater craziness, being a lot of what happened when Doctor Strange went into the different, whatever it was called. So maybe the visual stylings was a little trippy in Aquaman, but not as trippy as Doctor Strange. But the thing is, they're two different properties. One is a magician, Sorcerer Supreme, sorry, not a magician, Sorcerer Supreme, and the other one is the King of Atlantis. They're going to be different, but he gives it a 3 out of 5. So that's kind of, I think, on a low end. Anyway, here, Kenneth Turan from Los Angeles Times says, notwithstanding the inevitable formulaic dialogue and a superabundance of boilerplate superhero action sequences, Aquaman turns out to be, almost despite itself, an engaging undersea extravaganza. Well, okay, that makes some sense here. I mean, you're looking at a film that is trying to almost reinvent the DCEU. It really, really, really is. A year ago, we got Justice League, which just, as much as I wanted to love it, it fell short, I think, of a lot of people's expectations. Even Mamoa himself wants the Snyder cut, meaning that what we got was not what he was happy with, which makes sense. But here, yeah, the inevitable formulaic dialogue and superabundance of boilerplate superhero action sequences is something you're going to get in kind of a by-the-numbers origin story, right? Not much is going to change in regards to how DC is going to tackle these products. They're not going to sit there and make it something as vast and interesting as Captain America Winter Soldier just yet. They're trying to relay the groundwork, and they're doing it in a way that seems familiar. Kind of like how The Force Awakens was very familiar in its path, and a lot of of people felt they'd been there before. Maybe that's one of the things that happens here, but it does say, at least here, that it turns out to be an engaging undersea extravaganza. Now, according to Ignativ, I'm not even going to pronounce that last name, I'm sorry, from AV Club, saying here, Aquaman needs its smirking, beer-loving, roadie-looking, Chippendale-chested hero, not to save the day, but to remind us that this stuff is about goofy as it gets. And that's true, and I think Mamoa brings that level of excitement to him. He brings that level of fun and engagement to him. He very much wants it to be a good time, and I think he does that very well. Emily Yoshida here from New York Magazine says, Aquaman is as formulaic, excessively trashy, or thrashy, and mommy-obsessed as any other entry in the DCEU, but its visual imagination is genuinely exciting and transportive, I dare say fun. Again, she's referring to the whole Martha situation from Batman v Superman. I personally felt that was an amazing coincidence at the time, one that I didn't even put together when I saw it in theaters. I think that a couple years later, fans have grown more supportive of it, but obviously parents in the relationship contained within, or no relationship at all, is a large driving force for superheroes. It makes no difference that Aquaman would be having similar situations with his mother and his father, and where he sits on this. Johnny Olakinski from New York Post says it's just H2 okay. I'm not even going to dignify that with a anyway. That's terrible. Mara Reinstein here, Rotten Review, says, take away Momoa's steady presence and you're looking at an overstuffed mess that provides entertainment purely in an oh my god, this is a disaster kind of way. And that's from Us Weekly, and that's fine. She can think that. But the thing is, Momoa's steady presence, like any other leading man or leading woman in these type of films, they have to kind of set the tone. They have to kind of lead the charge. I mean, the look at Wonder Woman, right? You've got Gal Gadot and Diana Prince, and she is, always full of hope and love and optimism. And that is set to the backdrop of the bleak World War I, trench warfare, chemical weapons, was always this shining beacon of light in that movie, and it worked out really well. So you have to still have a strong presence of a leading actor. So I kind of disagree with you there based on what I know, but that's your opinion. Now, Robert Daniels here gives it a positive review, saying, bloated and overcooked. Yes, those two things are possible. This film somehow succeeds in its own zany, weird way. Aquaman should be seen on the biggest screen possible with the least pretentiousness given. So basically, kind of check your preconceived notions of the film at the door, go in there expecting spectacle. You're going to get spectacle, and watch it the biggest place you possibly can, because you're going to have the most fun, I think, in that regard. Clint Worthington here from Consequence of Sound says, the real appeal of Aquaman comes down to director James Wan, who goes full bore with all the Silver Age pulp the source material has to offer, which isn't that what comic book fans want? I mean, granted, he gave it a fresh review, but isn't that ultimately what comic book fans want? They want to take the source material in all of its glory and all of its Easter eggs and all of its references and meta humor and things like that, and throw it into a film that works. I think that's generally what a lot of these people want. Dan Muro from Screen Junkies, who I saw a tweet about this after the fact, actually, saying Aquaman wasn't for me, but I admire a lot about the movie. Okay, well, obviously, he might be burned out on superhero films, but that's just the summary. I'm not going to go into the full review. Tim Gearson from Screen International gives it another rotten review. Says, a superhero movie with the scope of an epic, but the spirit of a mischievous boy, Aquaman, is a goofy, uneven adventure that proudly sticks to its loopy vision, even if it doesn't quite work. Well, again, we've already known that this is James Wan literally reinventing the wheel, right? He's copying Marvel. A fair amount of what he's doing is copying Marvel, but he's also reinventing the wheel, so to speak, and throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. And it does appear that a lot of it sticks. Some stuff maybe doesn't work very well, but a lot of it seems to stick. So, giving it a rotten review based upon that, I don't know. I'd have to see the rest of it. Sean O'Connell from Cinema Blend here with the fresh review, saying, a fun, exciting, imaginative, occasionally silly, but undoubtedly epic adventure that establishes an incredibly rich new cinematic world, which is exactly what Warner's wants. That's exactly what Warner's is going for. They are trying to move away from Zack Snyder, and that is unfortunate to me, because I love the Snyder films. But I understand what they're doing. They want to play catch up to Marvel. They might understand now that it's going to take time, but this movie is now looking like it could possibly reach $1 billion. Like, it's the likelihood of Aquaman completely eclipsing Wonder Woman is going to be very interesting and going to be very, very, very fascinating to see, considering the fact that no one ever assumed that an Aquaman movie would do well. But then Cal Davenport here from Complex, final review, giving it a rotten, says, maybe Aquaman Ragnarok is a better vibe for the film. It's so goddamn colorful with Wan and company really leaning into being an unabashed superhero film. I'm just not sure if there's enough here to truly latch on to. Well, you know what? Here's the thing. I said the same thing about Thor Ragnarok the first time I saw it. I kind of came out of that going, I don't know how I feel about this movie. There wasn't really a lot there that I felt I could grip onto. It just felt like it was Chris Hemsworth wanting to riff for 2 hours, right? It's just him like, hey, we make this movie. I can finally be funny. But then I watched it again, and I caught a lot of the subtext, and I caught a lot of the littler jokes, and I caught a lot of the things. And for me now, Ragnarok is up there. So maybe that's the whole point of Aquaman. Maybe that's the whole point of Aquaman here, is that it has to go and be, it has to go and be itself. It has to go and be what it can, right? And maybe that's kind of where it's at. Maybe that's where people have to see it. They see it once, they have to watch it again to see everything that Wan threw at this. Wan is a fantastic director, and predominantly the reason why I want to see this movie. I mean, as much as I love Jason Momoa in the role, but Wan is never, ever let me down in the 15 years that I've been watching his films. So to tackle a project like this, especially after he kind of breathed new life essentially into the Fast and Furious franchise after Justin Lin stepped down, like he really continued it. And then F. Gary Gray knocked it out of the park, but I don't have to talk about that. I want to see what this movie comes up with. One of my buddies, Lewis Love over at Nerd Report and Nuke the Fridge, he saw it and his review gave it a thumbs up. Campia gave it thumbs up. I think Grace Randolph even liked it. So there are, I think a lot of people out there are going to enjoy this movie. But now it's up to you. If you're going to go see it when it comes out on the 21st, I'm curious to know. Let me know down in the comments below if you guys are going to make it. Let me know if you have any preconceived notions going in. Do these reviews kind of back up your thoughts, or do they make you kind of look at it from a new perspective? I'm curious to know. So write them down in the comments. My name is, of course, Matt Jarbo. This has been $3 Theater. If you haven't already, please type Aquaman into the chat so I know you guys made it. Thumbs up the video, subscribe if you're new. And if you do want to, call into the voicemail line, you can call us at 818-350-3281. That's 818-350-3281. The voicemail line open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I will be answering the questions on that this Sunday on the call-in. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later. Have yourself a great day and peace out.